Hey, everybody. Hi, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the FIveStack. We're talking about Zev's poor little dog who went to go get fixed today, and
Mm.
he's quite upset about it. It's real upset.
I was I was really, I wanted to go back to the vet area at the back there, and I was like, I wanted to take him back home because I was so worried. I just heard him like yelping away there, and I was like, oh my God, he's just such a little guy. What are they going to do with him? But he's, I think he'll be
That's
fine.
like it's the same thing that like parents have when they drive. Yeah, because at this age, listen, you and I are not spring chickens.
No.
I assume you live alone, right? You got a dog. You got like he's your pet. He's your child. He's
He
not.
is.
So like liken it to dropping your kid off at a
Hmm.
daycare for the first time.
Yeah.
Something he's not familiar with. You've got separation anxiety. He's got separation anxiety. And I'm a big dog guy. Like I'm the dog person. Like when I
Yeah.
walk down the street, dogs look at me. I'm the Pied Piper of pooches. Is
Oh,
what I
really?
am.
The Pied
Yeah,
Piper of Pooches.
totally.
Great. I
But
didn't know that.
I understand. I understand what Boomer's going through. I understand what you're going through today,
He's
and I
going to have a
feel for you.
cone. He's going to have a cone for a week,
Well,
I
he's
don't
not
know.
supposed to lick the wound.
I know, generally speaking, he's not supposed to do that, but he does, so I don't know how I'm
He's a
going to
bit of a
stop him.
wound licker.
He's just, he enjoys that part of his,
Well, you would too if you
anatomy.
could reach there. Yeah, we all
I don't
would.
even,
We'd never
well,
leave the
I don't
goddamn
know.
house, Jeff.
I don't
That's
know what you're talking about.
well,
It-
yes, you do actually.
It's,
Sort of the thing.
it's the five stack,
Hi,
the top
everybody.
five stories of the day right here. Counting down for number five to number one. And we're so glad you're here today. And at number five, wow, 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 wow. That was a huge, huge night in Canada. I was up so late, but
Yeah.
worth every second of it because Carney and the Liberal Party win another mandate, the fourth mandate for the Liberal Party, and he becomes the 25th Prime Minister. And now he's elected to office for the first time. But you know who isn't elected to office? It's the
Yeah.
other guy. Tell us all about it. What happened last night?
What didn't happen last night, Zev? I laughed, I cried, I fist pumped, I high fived, I was perplexed. I Googled Canada elected Mark Carney as you pointed out. Thank you, very good intro. As the 25th Prime Minister of the United States or of Canada, not the United States of America. Pardon me.
That would work
Um,
nicely if they did that. Maybe we should take over the United States as our 13th
yeah,
province
I don't see
because
why we don't.
it would work better
Yeah,
that way for us, if there was, sorry.
without question, it would. They would be happier too if we took it over. Americans, generally speaking, if Canada took over America, they'd be like, please, thank you. You know how many notes I got today from people that watch the Five Stack, that read our stuff, know I'm Canadian, know that, what was really important with this
Mm.
Canadian election, that are like, thank you. Thank you for keeping us informed. We really don't get much information down here. But Mark Carney romped to a win last night. Sitting at 168 seats right now, needs 172 for a majority. We've got a recount in 12 different ridings, they're called here. They'd be called districts in the United States of America, but ridings. And looks like he's going to win at least four of them, maybe five, maybe six. Real outside chance he wins seven. So it looks like a majority is still in reach. And,
Really?
we used,
You think
yeah.
you think, wow, I didn't see
Well,
that
in
coming.
reach, I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah,
Like I
but
have
it
no idea if
could.
it's going to happen. But if you look at all the recounts, too close to call. Some of the ridings are lit up in pink, which is leaning towards the Liberal Party and Mark Carney. And these are pretty big ridings. Some of the GTA, there's a couple in Quebec that would be really cool to get. But it was, like I said, the word repudiation really comes to mind. You wrote a great piece about it. I've got a couple pieces on my Substack as well, where you can kind of understand what Canada went through. This was about protecting Canada's sovereignty. The game changed as soon as Trump started opening up his trap about, tariffs and annexation, and literally the floodgates and bomb bay doors opened, and everybody rushed to the liberal side of the ship and voted for Mark Carney, where it mattered because he's the only adult in the room, Zev. Like we've talked about this dozens of times, is that he has a plan. He is taken seriously on the world stage. Pierre Poilievre is not. And Pierre Poilievre ran around trying to campaign for 3 years, gaslighting a nation. And so his own riding, who he abandoned for 3 years while he was campaigning, sent him to the showers as well, meaning he did not win his riding. He is currently out of government. And the funny part of that is,
So good.
to me, oh, it's
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
The funny part of that is to me, which I love, is that he was complaining that Mark Carney shouldn't be prime minister because he was the leader of a party without actually being an elected official. Well, guess who the leader of the official
That's
opposition
true.
is
That's
today
true.
without actually having a seat? Pierre
What?
Poilievre. Yeah.
Why isn't he resigning? I mean, there seems, normally
Because he
you'd think
doesn't have a fucking job,
it's the
Zev.
only thing he knows how to do. I mean, they did
Yes.
okay. They did okay, probably a little bit better than expected, but still, obviously, they were expected to win just a few months ago, and now they're not. Just to explain to people the context of what we're talking about here. If this is a giant chessboard, and the Canada would be like losing your queen. It's like it's a significant thing, or your king at least, something, because as these anti-democratic forces have been trying to take over country after country in the world, they've been targeting these democracies, and who would have ever thought they would be able to get at the United States and do what they've been able to do in the United States. But now that fell, well, they started looking to the next big get, which was going to be Canada. It was going to be Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party that were going to play that role in Canada. And Canadians stopped that.
Yeah.
They did something that Americans could not do. They
Yeah.
did something that no other country in the world has gone on, except maybe a couple where they still protest and things. But really, Canada, through its democratic process, was able to stop this authoritarian creep from taking over Canada. And what that means for this global movement that's been trying to take away democracy is significant. And it shouldn't be underrated, because this is such a pivotal thing that Carney's done. He's turned around the country and the world, because just a few months ago, he was written off the party was written off as a non-starter. And now look at them today, saving the world and saving democracy.
Yeah, yeah, and I love how you put that, and it's not untrue. If Pierre Poilievre won yesterday, all the aid for Ukraine would have disappeared. Foreign aid would have disappeared. Universities would have been defunded. Our national broadcaster would have been defunded. Social programs would have been defunded. Exactly what you're seeing in the United States of America right now. Exactly what you see. The notwithstanding clause would have been used to put criminals in jail with no due process. Exactly what you're seeing in the United States today.
And the threat of America taking over Canada would have been far more real, because if they have the potential to do it through economic and legislative means, probably Poilievre would have signed on to that. He basically ran on that, so it's
he said yesterday, 2 days ago, he's like, the first thing I do when I'm prime minister, the first thing I'll do when I'm prime minister is I'm going down to the United States to sort this tariff mess out, which was French for the first thing I'm going to do is go pay fealty to that crackhead in the United States and give him anything he wants so I can get generational wealth for my family and I can be the governor of Canada. And that's what Mark Carney stopped yesterday. You saw today the outpouring of emotion, relief from people. And keep in mind, I do not like the Liberal Party. I do not like the Conservative Party. I don't like institutional politics, their businesses. But you saw Canada embrace character yesterday. That stood in direct contrast to the lack of character that's currently running the United States with the Trump regime. And not only did that turn America right on this morning, inundated with notes from Americans saying, fucking thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for standing up for us. Because we did this for us, but we also did it for America. Because we know that if the other guy won, it's a straight shot to turning Canada into a North American empire for the president of the United States who wants to be a king. It's a straight shot to ending any aid in Ukraine. Like this reverberated in Moscow. The fact that Pierre Poilievre did not win, the fact that he lost his seat was Canada punishing him for 3 years of gaslighting us like we were a bunch of American hillbillies who were eating up, MAGA pie. We're not. And that is what shocked me about yesterday. It wasn't just the full-on pushback of MAGA and Maple MAGA by Canada. It was the full-on pushback and punishment of someone who tried to bring MAGA-style politics to this country and almost ran away with the country to give it to Donald Trump. This is an authoritarian global movement. When they talk about how much they hate globalists, they don't. This is an authoritarian globalist movement. And Canada literally put our feet in the sand yesterday, stood up and said, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere because democracy needs us. The EU needs us. Our American friends need us. Ukraine needs us. And Canadians need this.
Yeah.
That's what happened yesterday, and that's what I found to be beautiful. Not only was it a national response to a global issue, it was a national punishment of MAGA itself by not allowing Mr. Polyev, dollar store Trump, to continue to run around with that divisive, shitty, hateful rhetoric. And we took our country back yesterday, but we didn't, like I said, didn't do it for us. We did it because we want America to have their country back as well.
Well said. We have all been looking for the person and the movement that is going to push back against Trump. And we thought it was going to come in the United States, and maybe it still will. But where it's really manifested is in Canada. And the people of Canada have shown their resolve and have been able to see through the disinformation in a way that others have not been able to see for some reason. And maybe it's the efforts of independent journalists like yourself and myself that have been able to do some of this educating. But, this ability to cut through the disinformation fog that was equally here in Canada just a few months ago and all the way up to the election day. Somehow Canadians were able to see through that. No matter what was thrown at them, they understood that it was lies. They understood that it was disinformation and propaganda. And that is a very comforting sign for those of us who work in this realm, that to know that people are literate about this stuff, that they can sense it, that they can now tell what it is, and they can disarm it, because that is how you beat this kind of authoritarian creep that's going on around the world.
Such a great way to put it, Zeb. Always, you give such great context, but you also, really underpin the severity of the moment. And you're not wrong. I mean, I'm amazed that Canadians took time over the past 3 months to literally get to know the issues, right? Get to know the people. But more importantly, Canadians, and I was on a podcast with the guys at Polymarket today. We were talking about character. Character became the most important voting hammer of this election. Are we going to elect someone with character to stand up to that, or are we going to just give our agency away? And Canadians are so smart. We're so empathetic. We're multicultural. But when it really matters, we do the work, right? And Canadians did the work. They literally did the work of understanding who Mark Carney was, of not playing political bias, of not, and then one side for sure shamed, and you got the extremes of the left and the right that are like, you're an idiot. No, you're the worst. No, your guy's going to ruin our country. No, your guy ruined our country. Like all that stuff. But we stopped doing that, and we literally, and I say this with all due respect to anybody who hates Trump as much as I do, we have him to thank for this, because he's playing the tape forward for Canadians as to what our country will look like if we give our agency to Pierre Poilievre.
Great way to put it, yeah.
And that tweet that he put out on Election Day, which we covered yesterday, where he was effectively saying, you have to vote for Pierre Poilievre, and then I'm not going to tariff you. And I love your landmass, literally turning Canada into a landmass. Canadians are not dumb. We looked at that and went, done deal. Do you know how many people voted for Mark Carney yesterday with their thumbs on their nose like this, going, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I really hate Donald Trump? Millions. Millions.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had to vote NDP yesterday strategically, never voted NDP in his life, but did it yesterday in whatever riding that he needed to vote NDP for, only because, and he's literally a conservative, only because he didn't want the conservative candidate to win. So he voted for the complete polar opposite of anybody he'd ever vote for, and said he, quote, made me sick, but it was my patriotic duty. We had an entire country do that yesterday, and I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah, I think it's so telling. And, what you point to about values and characters, exactly what Carney said in his speech last night when he, addressed the crowd in, what's his riding again?
Nepean.
Nepean. Cute little place.
Ottawa. Yeah.
And he basically said, that the values that Canadians hold true, if I remember this correctly, was about humility, about ambition. And if I'm not mistaken, the third one may have been about defense, but I'm not quite sure if it was or maybe I don't remember the third one. But the two really struck me, the first two, to have a speech by a leader of a country that begins with humility is remarkable. And it does speak a lot of the Canadian people and how they've always acted, but they've certainly acted in a principled way. And this election is very meaningful. This is a really consequential election. This is not one of those elections that you can just say, oh, it's just another Canadian elections where politics doesn't matter. This is a consequential elections where the history will see this turning point, and history will judge this turning point, and it is one of those turning points in history. So the fact that Canadians did the right thing is remarkable.
And let me just kind of put a bow on that if I can, and I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. Is you know when Trump won the second time around, when he won the first time around, I was in shock and disbelief because everybody knows how corrupt and stupid he is, and zero moral fiber, no ethics to speak of. And I thought they're gonna pick that, like that's their representation of what they want on the world stage. They're gonna like literally pick a guy with no character, no morals. Like morally flexible isn't a word for him. He's morally bankrupt.
Yeah, it's criminal.
Um, and I was really disappointed in America. Like I was disappointed in Americans. I was disappointed in my friends who voted for him, who live in America. I was disappointed because I couldn't square that circle. Like I'm like, everything that I stand for is about values and virtues, right? Courage, wisdom, temperance, justice, humility, kindness, love, empathy, all the things that make you a human being. And they stand for none of that. And watching Canada flirt with that for a couple of years scared me. But when it mattered, watching Canada come back to the middle of what's really important. And what was really important are those character values, those virtues, those, as Mark Carney said, humility. We walk tall, carry a big stick, and we don't say much.
Mm-hmm.
But when it really matters, we walk a little bit taller, we find more friends with more sticks, and we beat the shit out of whatever we have to beat the shit out of. And that usually ends up with some type of right fighting or justice movement that Canadians can all get behind. But we'll do it for each other.
Mm-hmm.
We'll reserve the right to fight with each other. No one's going to come into our house and tell us that we're now going to be part of their team. No, 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 no. We're going to fight on our own, because that's who we are. And then when we're done, like a hockey fight, with our teeth hanging out of our faces and blood pouring down our faces, we'll grab your hand and we'll shake your hand and we'll go get a beer together and we'll talk about how much fun it is to be alive. That's Canada. And watching Canada do that yesterday was brilliant.
You don't think Donald Trump uses the word humility very often?
I don't. I think he would have like literally a seizure if he mentioned that word.
Yeah, I think it's counter to everything that he is and the way he acts. And that's why the world is in the place that it is right now. Into our number 4 story is all about Donald Trump and the U.S. Treasury. So now he's had this tariff war, as you well know. He's now looking to borrow $514 billion in order to cover the cost of that, horrific policy that is absolutely cratering the American economy. This is 320% higher than he initially thought he was going to need to loan at this time. So, it's a large quarterly increase for a country, for anybody. $514 billion, a lot of money to try and raise. And, it just speaks to the awkwardness, the this catastrophic way, this clumsy, unplanned, stupid way that they've been going through this tariff policy. And I'm going to combine story number 4 and number 3 here just to say, at the same time, Amazon started running these alerts on it. When you bought something from Amazon, it would tell you how much the tariff would cost. If you was $100 more, whatever. Yeah. So he has a meltdown of this. I mean, it seems to make sense if Amazon's charging you another $100 for whatever it is you're getting, that they will list it for you.
Yeah, it's called a bill of sale, where you itemize all the charges on the bill of sale. It's called a receipt. Yeah,
it's normal, right? It's what you expect.
Very,
Except Donald Trump thinks this is a hostile act. So his press secretary came out today and told the world that this is hostile. And, I have no idea why.
And then she blamed Jeff Bezos for working with Chinese propaganda machines.
Yeah. Yes.
And held up a picture of him on a piece of paper. Yeah,
which
really
I actually,
compelling.
Truthfully, Amazon has worked with some Chinese propaganda entities, but they're doing it for the commercial needs of anyone who works in China would need to work with those same commercial, propaganda outfits, because that's what you do if you want to do business in China. So yes, technically there have been some involvement with these Chinese propaganda outlets, but that's not really why they're doing it. They're not trying to sink Donald Trump by being hostile to him. They're just doing it because they want to sell shit in China.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'd like to hear your views on the tariffs and this disaster.
Oh man, I don't know if it could get any worse. Like, from the repudiation of yesterday's election in Canada to him, publicly having to borrow 518 billion or 514 billion dollars just to meet the call from what he did to the economy
Yeah.
because he's dumb and because he's mean and because he's a moron, to then go after Jeff Bezos the way he did after Bezos put a bunch of money in his inauguration fund
Yeah.
to hold a press conference. And by the way, that story comes from a website that was poorly sourced. And Amazon executives effectively said, we talked about it for the lower paying version of Amazon, but we never did it and we weren't going to do it. So their story was wrong. So effectively, on top of all that, Donald Trump fell for some fake news, and he made Caroline Levitt go out there and go, "Oh yeah, well the Chinese have been working with Bezos the whole time, and you need to buy American people, and that's why." But he got so mad about the Amazon thing because he's so mad about everything not working out, and he's so mad that Jeff Bezos and Timu, who's doing this, Timu's literally putting the tariff prices on all
Yeah.
of their bills now, that he was so pissed off because he didn't want consumers to ask questions about why their shit was twice as expensive. He
Yeah.
didn't want them to know that this is a tax on them. And we,
Because he's been
like
telling people it's China that's paying this extra bill. It's not you, the consumer. Don't worry,
there's
your income taxes
so
are going
many
down.
issues in there, dude. There's so many issues
Yeah.
from the fact that he believed really kind of a fake news story and then forced his brain dead, like Stepford mom press secretary to go out and go, where this is a hostile act against America, about a bill of sale and
Yeah.
how his tax is going to increase that bill of sale by double, triple, or quadruple, depending on what you buy from wherever you buy it from if you go on Amazon. And what Jeff Bezos was trying to say was, hey, we're not doing it. We did talk about it, but it's kind of important to give people an accurate assessment of their bill of sale when you sell them fucking
Yeah.
items.
Yes, especially because you're taking money from them. So basically, he wants to tax the American people without the American people noticing that he's
Knowing what the
taxing them.
tax is.
Which is, I mean, you notice when $5,000 of your money has gone out of your account because you're spending all this stuff.
When you say it, it sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Well,
Like, that
that's-
just sounds so fucking crazy that anybody would have a problem with it, on top of the fact that he would try to continue to cover up the idea that he's just downloaded the biggest tax hike on American consumers in American history.
And he isn't going to enjoy a boom, obviously, in the amount of revenue the government's going to have, but he's probably going to use it for purposes that are very nefarious. But that's what happens when you have tariffs and taxes on the people. It just strikes me as, I said today on X, I think I said that it was that the Trump administration had jumped the shark. You know that expression from Seinfeld or whatever, where they
Jump the shark.
yeah. Just that
Old
makes it's now like it's so stupid now. It's so like it's gone.
You
into
can't even take it seriously. Like,
You can't.
dude, I read that today. I watched Caroline Levitt
Yeah.
go after it. I did the
It's like-
research. Came from Pop World. Pop World put out a disclaimer like, yeah, you know what? We're not giving out our sources,
Yeah.
but we're pretty sure this is real. It was a fake news story that literally captured the White House and Trump weaponized. And it's all because this is crazy. He doesn't want people to know that the tax he just downloaded on him is a tax that he's downloaded on him, because he doesn't want him to see it on a piece of paper. Because if he does, then his shitty approval rating, which is like 35% after 100 days, historically terrible approval rating, will go down even more, because he's busy trying to convince everybody, A, this is not a tax hike, which it is. B, I'm really popular, which he's not. And C, I'm not failing miserably, which he is. So it's just death by 1,000 cuts. But to your point, it blows your mind when you consider, like, this is an insult to the intelligence of Americans.
Someone said it's
Right?
Happy Days, by the way. Fonzie on Happy Days that gave us
Yeah.
the jump the shark. I said Seinfeld, but it's kind of it's gotten to the point now where you got to wonder, like someone who's like Scott Bessent, who's actually kind of, the Treasury Secretary, is kind of a smart dude by all accounts. What is he doing up there? What is he like? How is he even consoling himself on a nightly basis when he's standing up in front of the world and embarrassing himself?
You'll eat a lot
with
of shit for power, dude.
Nonsense. It's complete nonsense. There is nothing coming out of this deal. There are no tariff negotiations. The Chinese are not interested in doing this because it's helping them, actually. And this is going to go on for a long time. And actually, people are going to stop seeing products on the shelves in just a few weeks. We're at the point now where the amount of shipping containers that are coming into all the big harbors like LA Harbor are just down by 30, 40%. Well, guess what? Those are products that are required to fill shelves in America. And so not only are you going to be paying a tax on the items you're getting because that's what he wants. He wants these tariffs. You're now going to be facing empty shelves. It's going to become like Cuba,
Yeah.
where there's no variety of products there. You might be lucky to find one product, and then it's going to be super expensive because of all the tariffs and all the government corruption going on around it.
North Korea, welcome.
Yeah.
America,
Yeah.
welcome to North Korea. You get nothing and you'll like it. It's your patriotic duty, by the
Yeah.
way.
Little
Seattle
suffering.
reported Seattle's port used to do a very brisk business, as you
Mhm.
know, in
Yeah.
Seattle, down 92%.
Yeah. Wow.
There are no ships in the Seattle port. Right
And
now.
nothing's going out either, right?
No.
So it's like this, it's a waste of these shipping charges. They're so expensive for no good reason, and American consumers are going to be paying dearly in the next few months. And this is the tragedy of all of this, because on top of everything else that they've done, on top of the job cuts to the government sector, on top of cutting back all these services, all this healthcare services, all the social security slowdown that they've created, on top of all that stuff that's going to really hurt society anyhow, there's going to be empty shelves and increased prices and inflation. And this is, this is the president's plan.
Hell of a
Yes.
first 100 days, huh? Like when you look back on all the rhetoric and him standing on Air Force One, opening that door, telling everybody how great everything is. Empty shelves are coming. Dude, every major CEO of every major retailer tried to tell him, tried to warn him, this is not going to be good. We're going to have empty shelves in 2 to 3 weeks. That was yesterday. Changed the course of history in Canada for the better for the rest of the world. United the rest of the world against Vladimir Putin, specifically the EU, who are rearming. Started an economic development boom in Canada and with other EU countries to protect our sovereignty. I go back to this all the time, that the butterfly effect of this moron is incredible, almost as incredible as his effort, ongoing effort, which, you throw media into that mix as well, to contain the fallout of his extreme failure and how completely fucking incompetent he is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just total incompetence. I've got a story that I'm doing later tonight about the first 100 days. And, if you look at history, there's basically 6 months for these administrations, these authoritarian administrations, to consolidate their power to a point where there's kind of a point of no return, and you get it about 6 months. And we're seeing this administration, especially with this new police legislation that come out with this executive order yesterday. This is, real totalitarian kind of.
Yeah, did you read that? The White House press release that he put out?
The one about the EO. This is actually going to be our next story.
Line this up. Yeah, please. But I'm lining this up with like under the radar, really important story, in as much as that faith-based Gestapo that he started the other day, that goes under the radar, where you're like, hey, America, you need to be really shitting your pants over this whole thing. The EO about law enforcement was just another thing that America needs to shit their pants over. Yeah.
I mean, it's a draconian piece of legislation that does two things. Firstly, it allows all the oversight over these police forces, these local police forces, your city police, not to have any oversight, right? It basically limits any oversight or any sort of, if they commit a crime, if they kill somebody, you don't expect those to be prosecuted in any way. Yeah. But it also allows the attorney general to go after cities, mayors, and prosecutors and district attorneys who are opposing this nationalization of their police force or trying to put limits on these sanctuary cities. It's going to allow the attorney general to arrest the mayor of a city and arrest the prosecutor of a city if they're not doing what they're told, which is a nationalized police force, which is exactly what happened as Dean's coughing away, I'll just keep talking, and is exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. I mean, we are talking about basically a very similar kind of nationalist, nationally organized, federally controlled, judicially managed federal police force that's going to be doing what Donald Trump wants from Washington, D.C.
Do you know who had great success doing that other than Hitler? Vladimir Putin, who, when he came to power, he nationalized every municipal or police force in every oblast, turned them into Russia only. And then he became the guy that, set the tone for how the police act, what they do. And then he stripped all those, not that Russia had any, many policing watchdogs, but strip those guys out as well. Yeah. I mean, and I read the White House press release today, which reads like, hey, Americans, I'm gonna start really policing you now. I'm gonna make sure I nationalize every municipal police force, every different district that has a different police force. I'm gonna bring them all under my purview, and we're gonna let them off the hook.
Hmm.
And we're going to do it to catch criminals and bad guys. Except it's not criminals and bad guys, because if that was the case, then they would have arrested him for being a rapist and being a 34-time
Yeah.
felon,
No, this is not about that.
and money laundering and all the other things. This is just about him finally getting to the point where he can pull a Putin and he can turn a large cross section of law enforcement into brown shirts
Hmm.
like Hitler and the SS did back in the day.
Hmm.
That's what this is. This was an
100%.
announcement that he's starting a brown shirt movement, and he's going to start with a bunch of people in law enforcement in a whole bunch of different states. They wear brown shirts. So they're real excited. He had a bunch of guys in brown shirts, literally. I don't know if you saw the video and
I
the
didn't see
visual.
that. No, I didn't see that. Oh,
Yeah, they're
wow.
all
It's
wearing
crazy.
like brown shirts, cowboy hats. They got big dusters. They got guns with them, and they're like, "We're coming to get you." But they'll come and get anybody he tells them to go get,
Yeah.
which is the whole point of having brown shirts in Secret Service. It's the whole point of having, deputizing militia, which apparently is in the offing now as well with the whole J6
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes
stuff. Yeah,
sense.
where there's like, let's go and get some militia. That was another thing I read yesterday. Let's get some militia to be, Trump appointed special operatives from law enforcement, which is literally just trying to figure out a way to get as many violent assholes under your purview as humanly possible so you can continue to scare the shit out of people, but do so with no oversight.
Yeah.
That's what the announcement said.
It is basically that. And when you look at this 6 months notion, this is what authoritarians do. They try to capture as much control. But when you look at the things that signal a totalitarian state or an autocratic state, this nationalizing a police force is one of the key indicators that we are, if not there yet, we're about to be there. So a lot of attention needs to be placed on this because it's not really about, they'll start off by saying it's about undocumented immigrants, but it's not about that, as you point out. It's about going after anyone they perceive as a risk to their power. And that can be any city official, any voting city official, any journalists, any activists, you name it. It gives them this sort of extraordinary reach into cities and into homes, and in a way that has never been done before. I mean, this whole point behind a federalist system is to not have the national police force sort of, run your state police, your local police. That's the whole point
Mhm.
about the federation. And so it's very, very frightening. And I think people really need to understand how serious this particular trigger is, and why I'm saying in this piece that I'll put out tonight that we've got 80 days left. It's 100 days. 6 months is 80 days from now. If something doesn't happen in 80 days to really push back against Donald Trump, we may be at a point of no return. If you look at what history is teaching us, and I know that's kind of frightening and disparaging, but at least we can say that. At least we have enough of a runway here to be able to say it's 80 days.
Mhm.
And I think it is stark when you look at history and you look at the stark precedents around this, but it is true that within 6 months, sometimes it takes longer. But this administration is moving very, very quickly and in a very
Yeah.
frightening direction.
Yeah. I mean, like he started sending people out of the country immediately,
Mm,
with no due process. And speed is the goal, as is, you know, meanness. That's the point,
yeah,
right? How do
meanness.
you bring a country into a place where they're so fucking fearful of you? You give them examples of why they should be fearful. You show them pictures of a bunch of people in an El Salvadorian prison with Christy Nome standing in front of them looking like a snack going, did you want to end up here? You tell the stories of the people you sent out of the country. And then you make a stand, even if they've been sent out illegally, saying, no, these guys are illegals. We don't give a shit. If they're in the country illegally, they're illegal.
And we're coming
Um,
after citizens too.
yeah,
That's right away. He
yeah.
says that.
It's a national security risk. Your thinking, your thought processes, your expected comments that you'll make because we've got these data points on you that say you don't like me.
Mm,
That's a threat to the national security of our country because I'm here to build it.
mm,
I was chosen by God to do this. And so that's the lens they look at everything through. That's what that's how they justify violence. It's how they justify the lack of due process. It's how they justify removing civil liberties and human rights. Is they'll say, you know what, I'm chosen by God, which he said dozens of times. Where He's like, I'm on a mission, and anybody that gets in the way of that mission is threatening the national security of the rebuild of this country.
Mhm.
So, under that umbrella, you're capable of doing some pretty gnarly shit to people, aren't you? Right? Which he's doing now. Whether he's building these concentration camps, whether he's going to farm them out to continually to El Salvador, whether he's going to start this law enforcement task force of brown shirts to go and beat the shit out of people he doesn't like and claim it's in the national interest. He literally is doing this from a deified position where he thinks that, and he's been able to convince people around him that their jobs and their mantles count on them delivering that mandate for him, which puts him in this deified position as someone that needs to be protected. And if you don't listen to him like a king, like a feudal king, you need to be punished for it. And Wisconsin judge, I think her name was Hannah. What was her last name?
Uh,
Wisconsin judge. She was arrested last week after literally adjudicating a guy's trial for a domestic abuse, and ICE agents were trying to track him down. He left the courtroom not in time to actually, ICE agents weren't there in time to actually pick him up. So they blamed her for not keeping him there, then
letting him out.
arrested her.
Mhm.
Yeah, then arrested her and said you helped him get out, which she did not. Like, they're going after anybody and everybody. If they're going after, like, judges, don't think that they're not just going to come after you for a fucking tweet at this
I mean,
point.
that's the point. The point is to go after judges. They want to make sure that the judicial system is subservient to them. And that's why they feel they can go after a judge. And in fact, they're making it a specific case to go after a judge, as they are with all these other cases. These are about testing the limits of their power. And the more they can test, and they'll continue to test, and, the more we give in, they'll push further. And the more we give in, they'll push even further. So that's why the pushback is so important at this time, that everyone just on every single issue, even though some of it might seem like irrelevant, you just got to push back, and you got to go and keep pushing back. But that may not be enough at the end of the day. We have 80 days here. People, I keep asking me, why isn't someone doing something about this? Well, there is no one left to do anything about this. There is not anything but the American people, the person you see in the mirror every day. That person has to do something, because that's the only way this ends. It doesn't end. I don't see it ending in any other way. There are no more guardrails that are going to be able to put Donald Trump behind behind bars or something like that. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The only mechanism that we know of is in the U.S. Constitution, which allows the people to remove the government if that's
and
not
he's
serving their
dumping on
interests.
that daily.
Yeah.
Right.
And within 6 months, these options are gone. Well, within less than 6 months, but at the 6 months mark, those options are going to be disappeared. So you've got these 80 days, really. And it might be.
Do you ever wonder if the Supreme Court feels bad that they gave him all that immunity?
Everyone should feel bad about what happened. Everyone should feel. Everyone's a little bit responsible for.
But he's neutered them to this point too. Like, do you ever wonder if they're sitting there going, oh,
they hate him? I mean, I've seen some of them. I mean, Justice, of course, I forget her name right now. It come to me.
Johnny Brown,
the one, the cult one, the Handmaid's Tale one. I can't remember it. Someone's gonna help me out here.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Thank you. I always freeze on names like that. But she, when we saw her at the State of the Union, she gave Trump a look that was like, "Oh, you are the devil." She was not impressed by him at all. So I think you've seen some, and you've seen that in the latest opinions that have come out of the Supreme Court, that there are clearly different lines being drawn about who is willing to support Trump and not. But are they going to be ultimately able to prevail against him? I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, the more we get past this 6 month mark, the more these institutions become beholden to him, the harder it is to reverse where we are right now. So, it's not the best news, but at least you've got
80
some
days,
more.
everybody should be
80
good.
days, yeah.
Could figure it out in 80 days.
So just to recap a little bit here, because I got lost a little bit. So number 5 was the Canada story. Number 4 was all about the tariffs and the incredibly stupid Amazon thing. And number 3 was all about the EO that we just mentioned and the new police state that he's creating. The number 2 story is about Spain's massive outage, where there was a power outage for significant amount of time. 50 million people were plunged into darkness for a long time. Now, immediately, all these officials kept saying this is some thermonuclear, not thermonuclear, thermo weather, I don't know, some weather event that had somehow contaminated their entire power grid and stopped them from being able to give power to the entire country. But now there's the Supreme Court stepping in and it's saying, well, maybe you should look at cyber terrorism because this other thing is not very plausible. This idea that a weather system anomaly
That
suddenly
no
took
one can
down,
see. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
took
yeah.
down an entire
Solar
power grid.
flares.
Not likely. Possible, but not likely. Cyber terrorism, much more likely.
Mm.
And so, you know, it's interesting because this is exactly the kind of thing that we're all being worried about is when you get infrastructure attacked and people being plunged into what could be weeks and weeks of no power, which we've seen before. We saw it with,
Yeah.
and I was in Sandy in New York for Sandy. Boy, that is something you've never seen before until you've seen a city without power. I mean, people turn into very different people right away. The scavenging for food, the scavenging for power for your phones, the scavenging for, even just water, because a lot of these apartment buildings don't have water once the power
Mm.
failures. You don't think about that. The amount of batteries you have as backup for your laptops. All these things start to matter so much in that environment. And no one cares until you're there, So getting to fixing that problem until you're there is a real problem. But I think what worries me a lot here is that we're seeing a sort of a warning shot by Russia and perhaps other players like North Korea or others that are quite advanced in this world. By doing this to Spain, I think we're seeing a little bit of a warning shot saying, hey, we have access. We can turn your country dark, and it won't be very hard for us to do. Here's an example. And then I'll get into number one story in a bit about what Doge is doing with our nukes. But I want to hear your thoughts about what's going on in Spain and about this whole idea.
Well, I have questions because has anybody claimed responsibility for it? Like, has North Korea said, yeah, that was us that turned the lights out?
Not that
No.
I'm aware of. No, no.
Have there been any credible allegations? And I'm only doing this because I'm like, okay, Lisbon was down yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. Portugal, large
Mhm.
portions of Portugal were
Yeah.
down. Spain was down. Same landmass. There's a couple other countries that also had some issues, but it's Spain and Portugal, two of the most
Mm.
unoffensive fucking countries on the planet.
Well, not really. I mean, not, and, they're still part of the EU and they're still part of NATO. And you've got they're the West. Plus, they've had their own issues with attempts at magifying their country, especially in Spain. But they're not that unoffensive. I mean, at the end of the day, these are also mobbed up countries. They also have a huge mob influence, and I think if you're looking for a real reason for why this is happening, the Supreme Court is asking the right questions there. They're not believing that this is some sort of weather anomaly. They're saying you have to consider cyber terrorism in this case. And I'm not an expert in this, so I wouldn't know how these terrorist attacks happen. But it sure has been obvious for a lot of people for a long time that this kind of infrastructure is exactly what countries go after. They go after, they insert these time bombs. We have them in
Sure.
Russia that, we can detonate them at any time and the entire country goes dark. Barack Obama put those in the Soviet Union, or sorry, in Russia. So, they obviously have it in the West. And I think they're showing us exactly what that could look like, if we don't do whatever it is they might want us to do. It's kind of a terrifying notion. And I know you're probably not read up on the story, so I'm not going to ask you to.
No, no, I am a little bit, not as
Yeah,
much as you. I didn't write about it, but
yeah.
it reminds me of that movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Leave the World Behind, that
Hmm.
movie on Netflix, the Obama film, Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, where all these governments decided to get together and literally cyber shock the United States of America, where Teslas were driving into each
Yeah,
other, clogging up roads. Oil tankers were running into
yeah.
land. There was no power in the cities to speak of. Literally, just shut America down, and
Mm.
then drop pamphlets from, the sky saying, "Hey, in Korean or Russian or whatever, depending on where you were." So, I watched that movie, and I remember thinking to myself, "It's got to be a matter of time before this happens, right? With the interconnectivity of everything, coding being what it is, hacking being what it is, the desire of bad actors to not just inconvenience but cripple infrastructure in other countries, which is the whole goal. Like, look at what goes on in Ukraine and Russia right now. Like, if Russia's not murdering innocent people at hospitals and schools, they're going after critical infrastructure. What's
Mm.
Ukraine going after?
Mm.
Critical infrastructure. They want to stop them from being able to pump oil. They want to stop them from having lights. They want to stop them from having electricity and heat. They want to make life very fucking uncomfortable. And to your point, if you haven't been involved in a long-term blackout, which I was here back, if you remember when the Eastern Seaboard went completely
Hmm.
dark about 20 years ago. I didn't have power for like 4 days. So you're
Hmm.
running into like a Starbucks that does have power, charging your phone. You're looking to find out a place to buy food that has the ability to process payment because you don't have cash. You didn't think you'd have to have cash. Like it's just, it messes up your whole mind. So I don't doubt that there's some time, and I'm only asking those questions about whether or not there was, any reports or any claims of responsibility about who might be at fault for this. I find it very, very convenient that in a time where you've got EU countries literally standing up for themselves for the first time ever, not looking at Big Brother, they're getting attacked by, or their infrastructure is getting shut down, where tens of millions of people don't have food, water, or power. Like,
Yeah.
that to me is absolutely something. And I'm glad the Supreme Court has actually stepped in and said, we need you to ferret out whether or not this was a bad actor, on top of you telling us it was a solar
Yeah.
flare or a monkey that fell on the wrong power line or
It's yeah.
transformer. Yeah.
It's not a weather anomaly. I don't. It might be, but I don't think it is. It leads us to the number one story, which is really tied to this, which is an excellent report by NPR this morning about how our friends at Doge were able to access the Department of Energy's nuclear servers, which is the nuclear power grids that we have and the stations that we have, and also the nuclear stockpiles that we have.
You telling me Donkey Dick had access to the nuclear codes?
Big Balls did, yeah. Big
Oh,
Balls, not the
big
other
balls,
guy.
dude.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not surprising that this has happened because we reported last week that the whistleblower's lawyer said that we should look at the Department of Energy. Wink, wink. There's something going on there. And then he also he mentioned Starlink. He mentioned the fact that Starlink was sucking up information and that it could do so unnoticed. And then we also learned exactly through the whistleblower how the Russians were able to access the Labor Relations Board by using this tunnels system, or an IP tunnel system, whatever that is, burrowing in unnoticed using Doge credentials and then sucking up all this data into Starlink or wherever. Well, we don't know if this happened or not at the Department of Energy. Although we do know the Doge credentials were created, they said that they were not activated. But the whole point behind the whole Russian operation is that you wouldn't be noticed. You would use the credentials and not be noticed. So, it seems to me that there at least needs to be a big investigation into what's happening here, because we are talking about the very same things that Spain is dealing with about the power grids. And we're
Yeah.
talking about our nuclear stockpile, which is our ability to defend ourselves in a nuclear standoff. So these are incredibly critical, highly important national security databases that are being accessed by 20-something-year-old hackers in Elon Musk's Doge universe. It's frightening, to say the least, basically.
Yeah, and nuclear secrets. Like, I can't tell you how many movies with Alec Baldwin and Sean Connery I've watched, that people were giving their lives to protect
Yeah,
nuclear
right.
secrets.
It's true. Now we just leave the door open, you
Yeah,
know?
you leave the door open, or you give some 20-year-old named Big Balls, a certain account, or you just keep them in your guest bathroom at Mar-a-Lago in boxes, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many
Good point.
receipts.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome.
Seems like an eternity ago, but it wasn't really.
Yeah, no. I don't know how many receipts we need to convince, Elon files, maggots, that you've been cooked. You have given access to some of the world's worst people, nuclear secrets that people have fought and died for like a fucking 80 years.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know how many more times we need to unleash a news story, or you do at narrative.org, about a Doge breach, Russian hackers, 100 kilobytes of information being sucked up the second Big Balls logs onto his computer, um, a lack of any, rooting out waste, fraud, and whatever they are using to tell you that they just need complete access to all of your government secrets, including nuclear. I don't know how many more of these we need to see or hear or read before Americans storm the goddamn castle. Like, you know, it, it blows me away, and I use that term. I use that term lightly because I can't understate it enough that Americans are literally sitting there like after this prideful golden age of we take our shit seriously, we're a superpower, we're buttoned up, we're tucked in into like, oh yeah, yeah, just let the South African oligarch have access to it. That's good.
Yeah,
We don't really care. Oh yeah,
the
yeah, just
racist
let a
guy.
34-time felon and a rapist have access. That's all. That's all
Yeah,
good. I don't know. I've watched Top Gun too many times, maybe
and
to sit here and go, oh well. And I shouldn't be more outraged than Americans, but somehow I am. Somehow you are. Somehow we are people here sitting like in Canada talking about like at what point are you going to grab your pitchforks and head down and go, okay, that's enough.
we're,
Get
we're
the fuck out.
we're past that time. I mean, really, if you're not horrified by everything that's happening right now, I don't know what will horrify you. This is like watching, a real horror movie happening in real time in front of your
Mhm.
face, and you're not doing anything about it. You're just sitting there looking at it like it's passing, like you're watching a movie. This is not a movie. This is happening in reality, and it's very serious. You hear like Carolyn Levitt talk about a hostile act. You talk about Amazon being a hostile act. No, no, Carolyn Levitt. The hostile act is when the Russians are accessing your nuclear power plants and your nuclear stockpiles because your guy at Doge left the back door open for them. That is a hostile act. That is something you should be having a press conference about. You should not be having a press conference about Amazon telling their customers how you're stealing, hundreds of dollars from them by hiding their taxes in your tariffs. You should be having your press conferences about what's going on at the Department of Energy, which is being compromised, it seems, by your own team at Doge, with potentially the Russians supporting them.
Yeah. Seems to make some sense to me. I go back to it all the time is that you're allowing a compulsive liar, two of them, one who's not even American, to steal your country, your pride,
Mhm.
your soul, your secrets, that you were known for dying for. You're just allowing it. You're just, yeah, go ahead. We don't really care anymore. And you can legitimately say, okay, those people have been brainwashed over the course of the last 10 years. You can blame Fox News. You can blame Breitbart. You can blame Trump. You can blame all those people. I blame Americans. I blame 77 million of them, as a matter of fact. Exact number. And I also blame the feckless group of people like Canada. We just had an election where a bunch of conservatives who hated, liberals voted for Mark Carney because we love our country. We just changed the course of history in this country because we live for each other. We live for the republic. What is born out of the lack of response in the United States as a South African complete fucking criminal and another guy who's a convicted criminal and rapist
Mhm.
are stealing America, stealing the American dream, as you so beautifully put it out yesterday, stealing your secrets that people fought and died for. Hundreds of thousands of people fought and died for. Some who will never get the credit because they were spies or, they were trying to protect America and they were like, your persona non grata. If you get caught, they get caught, they get killed. And Americans are just sitting there going, what are we going to do about it though? Right? What are we going to do? He's so mean. He's going to tweet stuff. Do
Mhm.
fucking something. Somebody do something.
Mhm.
Americans are desperate for a response to this because they've been conditioned to think that these things are important: national pride, national
Mhm.
security, state secrets, and they're literally watching the worst human beings in the world walk
Mhm.
away with all of it for free
Mhm. Mhm.
while you pay them. Do
It goes
something.
it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning of the show about values and how important they are,
Yeah.
and how, at the end of the day, that's what we have. That's what we as human beings, those are the things we have. We have who we are when the shit hits the fan. What are the things that we rely on? How do we act? How do we take responsibility for what's going on around us? Because it is our responsibility. And those values matter right now. Everyone needs to dig in. Everyone needs to look at themselves very, very honestly and say, what am I going to do about this?
Yeah.
What am I going to do about this? It's not somebody else's responsibility. It is, what am I going to do about it? because somehow these these indicators that we keep pointing out, these are real indicators. Totalitarianism is here. Authoritarianism is here. It's knocking at the door, and it is going to take over our country and the world, and we'll probably end up in a world war because of it, unless something is done to stop this man right now. And we have, for better or for worse now, at least a little bit of time, foresight into what's going to happen, because we are, you don't have the luxury of saying, like the Germans did, well, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't really know, the people will be taken away, but we didn't know. You know what's going on. You see it every day. You've got time to try and stop it. What are you going to do about it?
Well, dude, I couldn't agree more. Ignorance isn't an answer anymore. This is broadcast and publicized 24/7. You know what character is. You know what values are. You know what virtues are. You know how you want to be governed. You want to be governed by someone who you give power to, who gives it back to you, and he gives it to marginalized people, not someone who goes, I'm the president. I get to decide who lives and dies. I get to decide what taxes are, and you're going to pay me, and you're going to pay us, and we're going to change the course of America, even though you didn't ask me to. We're gonna fuck you over. And there is no coming back from that after, as you pointed out, a certain period of time. It takes you years. I mean, we've been telling Germany jokes for how long? 80 years, right?
Yeah. We said in Turkey.
I remember one of the jokes where if Germany stood up for something that was morally responsible, you'd go, even Germany doesn't want to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the compass, that's the path that America's on right now. And it is a night and day difference from the America that we were conditioned to believe was the greatest country in the world, which it is no longer. Like, I don't know if you listen to Mark Carney's acceptance speech. We talked about it earlier. I know you did, actually. So never mind, I'll rephrase it. You watched Mark Carney's acceptance speech. It was about those things, values and character, right? The only fruit of this life, Marcus Aurelius says it all the time. Well, he doesn't anymore because he's dead. But in Meditations, the only fruit of this life is good character and acts for the common good. That's it. That's all. That's all you got. And that's real leadership, and that's why Mark Carney got elected. And that's why Donald Trump has like a 35% approval rating in his first 100 days, because he is a paper tiger. He is a liar. He told you everything you thought you wanted to hear. He counted on most of the people voting for him being dumb, which they were. And then he doubled down on those lies. And then he inserted some anti-immigrant stuff. And then he said he wants to make America great again, make it look more like America used to in 1913, when there were barely any people of color in that country, like barely any. And if they were turned into slaves, or they were cleansed, like the Navajo Nation. So you've been told, you voted for it. And I mean, you look at the different sensibilities in Canada and the United States. We flirted with it for 3 years with Pierre Poilievre. And yesterday we're like, get out of here. Get out of here. The United States had a Trump presidency that was widely regarded as the most dangerous, detrimental presidency to the history of the United States. 4 years go by, they do it again. They do it again, and this time he delivers on the promise to turn that country into an authoritarian shithole. So, take it for what it's worth, but this is 100% on the good people of the United States of America to correct. We gave you a bit of an assist here in Canada yesterday, but it's your job to correct this. We're here for you, but you got to start doing it.
So the Constitution says everyone should read Dean Blundell's Substack, because you did a great piece yesterday that I posted as well, which was about Donald Trump's 100-day time interview, which is essential reading if you want to understand exactly what kind of character Donald Trump has and what bullshit he's putting out. And your piece was fantastic, but also other great reporting today on the Canadian elections and many, many other good things. So check out Dean's great Substack.
And check out Zev's Substack, because his report on the backdoor Russian Doge move is one of the great reads on Substack right now. Highly encourage everybody to go read it. It's all accurate, too. Like, sometimes you feel like you're reading a sci-fi fantasy novel when you read certain things online, and then you consider who they're from and, the fact that you wrote them, and this is something you've been very hawkish about. Highly encourage everybody to go to narrative.org as well. Subscribe, download, read his stuff if you want to kind of catch. We've done Cole's Notes stuff here, some opinion things, but go to the source and get that information from narrative.org too.
Thanks very much, Dean. And thank you at home for watching, wherever you are, carrying around your phone, I guess. Substack was down earlier, so we're sorry if you had trouble getting on at the beginning. But we're here, and we'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. on another FIveStack on Substack Live. I guess that's it. What is?
Yeah,
I
you
screwed up
crushed
the
it.
end.
You know, yeah.
We'll
We'll be back doing the Substack here, the FiveStack on Substack here tomorrow.
Oh, you see, you can't even do it either.
I fucked it up too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guy.